if you reduce demand too much, then we may indeed enter a recession. Was they expected that we might have a mild recession beginning in late 2023.
So you mentioned that predicts that we are going to have a mild recession later this year with the unemployment rate increase.
So in 1 year, it's gone from 0 to 5%. That's a very rapid increase, and that's why we're observing, for example, problems with our banks. Several regional banks have recently failed, and it also is the principal reason that we may have a recession. The reason the Federal Reserve is raising interest rates is to bring down inflation. Their goal, their mandate, Federal Reserve mandate is maximum employment and price stability. Right now, we are enjoying maximum employment. Our unemployment rate is 3.5%. That's the lowest it's been in 50 years. As interest rates go up, this would dampen demand. Those who have to borrow money to buy a house will have to pay more. Those who borrow money to buy a car would have to pay more. This would reduce demand across the economy to get inflation down. Now, the downside of this, if you reduce demand too much, then we may indeed enter a recession. So their estimates right now in their statement at the end of the March meeting was they expected that we might have a mild recession beginning in late 2023.
Yeah, so you just mentioned the reason that caused inflation is too much money chasing too few products. So which is very different from 2 years ago, like we were talking about like shortage of the supply chain. So right now, if we have enough sufficient financial stimulus from the COVID, then why the productivity in the factories are not catching up?
That the shortage of goods that we had because of COVID, the pandemic, and as you just mentioned, in combination with the money, extra money being supplied to the economy by both the Federal Reserve and the U.S. Congress through several programs, it's pretty much resolved that issue. So at this point, I don't think a shortage of goods are contributing very much, if anything, to our inflation rate. I think that has been resolved and brought down, and consumers are pretty much spending their money actually more on services. After being locked up because of COVID, consumers could really only purchase goods. There was extra demand for goods when there was a shortage of goods. Now that we are free to go about our normal lives, there's certainly a large amount of air travel or travel of any form, whether it's in a car or a plane. Consumers want to get out, go on vacation, see family and friends who may live far away. So a lot of money is now being spent on services, more so than on goods relative to a couple of years ago. And here, the extra money circulating in the economy is leading to this extra demand.
Sure. So what are the key factors that you're looking for this year when you're evaluating a company or a potential
investors who may not, and most people don't, have a background in finance, then I would say as a substitute, look at a rate of growth of profits over time, or a rate of growth, and this should be obtainable return on equity, return on assets. Now, in the short run, that are recession resistant, that is, their sales and profits are less likely to be affected by a recession than a more cyclical, economically cyclical company. And here, just in terms of one industry that I might mention is the food industry. People are going to buy food, or companies that come to mind, individual stocks that come to mind, a Coca-Cola, a PepsiCo, Hershey's, for example, are companies that are pretty much recession resistant, and I would expect their earnings to grow regardless, unless we get a very severe recession, then that hits everybody. But I would expect instead of growing at 8%, they grow at 6%, but they'd be growing. They would not expect to have be adversely affected to any great extent.